Kicker Chasing. It's the show where we chase the best kickers. The kickers that help you win championships. The biggest legs, the breaking news. It's everything you've come to love and know. The time is now for Kicker Chasing. Let's get some fucking kickers. Oh, yeah! Welcome to Kicker Chasing, ladies and gentlemen. I have a star-studded panel of kicker thought leaders. It is, of course, Michael Leone, my regular co-host, Pat Kerrane, and the specialist of all specialists, Denny Carter. Are you guys ready to talk kickers tonight?
I'm ready.
Hell yes.
I mean, we have lots of breaking news here. I mean, I will never forget where I was when I heard Ryan Suckup wasn't going to be playing this week. How have you guys handled the bombshell news?
I haven't really recovered yet. I don't know if I've handled it so much as I'm letting it breathe. Yeah.
And Denny, how do you handle these situations? I mean, you've been around kind of the churn and burn of the kicker landscape for a while. I mean, is this old hat for you, or does it still kind of shake you to your core?
Yeah, well, my sources within the Bucks had told me about the positive test about 24 hours before it came out. So I was prepared for this. I had adjusted projections. And I don't know who to give those projections to quite yet, but they're ready. And whoever kicks for them this weekend is going to be in a good spot. And that's all we need to know.
Do you have any intel on who we're looking at here for the Tampa Bay Bucks kicker?
Apparently they have somebody on their practice squad whose name I don't have off the tip of my tongue.
You're really setting us back as industry kicker experts with that one, Denny. I thought you knew the depth charts.
I should. I should.
Well, yeah. How have kickers been coming off of COVID in the past? Because we do have Suckup on one of our main event teams. We may need to go back to him for week 16.
It's a good question, and we're looking into it. My interns are, sifting through tons of information right now, making sure to cover every corner, and I'll get back to you on that. But right now, we're not sure how they recover from COVID, if it's like a Cam Newton situation, or a player who didn't suck coming off of COVID.
So, yeah, we do have people wondering where Ben Gretch is. You guys are just complete assholes. I bring on Michael Leone and CD Carter, and you guys want to know where Ben Gretch is. He did get bumped to the 2 a.m. time slot. Normally, that's when Chasing Kickers does go live, but because it is week 15, because it is prime time, we have so much news that, dare I say, has flipped the slate on its head. We did have to move it up to the 9:15 p.m. hour. Now, Michael Leone, this was a hot topic debate a few weeks ago. And here Pat and I are sitting without a Ryan Suckup on a team. We've had people out there that didn't have Zane Gonzalez last week. Do you want to take the victory lap on rostering two kickers in the FFPC playoffs?
Yes, I do. And someone asked, where's Ben Gretch? Should we allow him on the show? People who listen to Ben Gretch are in a tough spot. They're in a bind. I can envision someone at home right now. Zane Gonzalez, was the thesis of the one kicker strategy. He was the crux of it. Was, hey, you got a guy like Zane Gonzalez, you're fine. He doesn't catch COVID. He doesn't get hurt. Well, guess what, Ben Gretch? He already missed one game. Now we've got Ryan Suckup out, and there's a team in the FFPC main event that's in the top 10 that, would be in trouble right now if Ben Gretch was a co-owner. But thank God he wasn't a co-owner on that team.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I was reading Stealing Signals today, Ben Gretch's, Substack. I kept waiting for the Zane Gonzalez mea culpa. Kept scrolling, never found it. Denny,
Nothing.
I imagine you're not only a two-kicker advocate, you probably recommend people are jamming 3 or 4 of these bad boys on their team.
Yeah, I mean, you got to hammer them early and often, get 3 or 4 just in case. You never know. And I think that it's dangerous and frankly irresponsible just to go with the one kicker strategy, but who am I to judge?
No, go ahead, Pat.
Well, you can play matchups too, and I think that's something as I look at this main event team where we had Suckup. Now I'm a little concerned that we can't play matchups and we're just down to one kicker. And Steven Gostkowski has let us down. He only scored 3 points against Cleveland in week 13. And I don't know. I don't know what to make of this matchup with Detroit. We can really even expect him to come through.
Hey,
I think it's
domes
good.
are great for kickers, right, Denny?
Denny,
domes are great for kickers, right?
Remove the elements.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
And Denny, I mean, the question everyone wants to know, we're seeing all these rookie running back breakouts happening all over the place. But the real question is, who are the kickers that are going to bring home championships for people? Do you have any inclination here, week 15 and week 16 league winners?
Well, look, Matt Gay this week, off the charts, good matchup against the Jets. We have, who else did I write about this week? We have Mason Crosby, who's in a good spot, even though the Packers don't really kick field goals, but obviously in a great spot, Packers being huge favorites. The kicker to end all kickers this week, as usual, is Justin Tucker going up against Jacksonville. I think he has a nuclear ceiling. So if you have Tucker struggle through, his struggles, the Ravens' struggles, I think it pays off this week.
Leone, are you at all concerned? My issue with Matt Gay is, can the Jets score points and kind of speed up the game for Matt Gay to get more kicks? Is that a concern for you?
No, I think it's okay because we've got a fraud sharp in Sean McVay who already doesn't like to go for it on 4th and short. And now he's going to feel very comfortable taking those free 3 points. So I like that dynamic where McVay can kick his field goals all day long. I do want to note, I'm looking at my kicker projections for the week. Pretty tight up top, but Steven Gostkowski right now is number 1.
Wow. Yeah, and we have him stacked with Derrick Henry, which I'm excited about. One thing that I wanted to get Denny's take on was, we know that second-year wide receivers, that's a really nice breakout year for wide receivers. Tight ends, often maybe year 3, year 4. What year do kickers tend to break out?
It's usually between year 8 and year 9, and so you have to be really patient on kickers. Don't give up on them. Even if they get dumped, you get cut by a few teams. Year 8 and year 9 is what we're looking at usually. The prime is like 31 to 33 years old in that area.
And
Athletic prime, yep.
Pat, one question I wanted to ask you. I was watching Stat Chasing earlier this week, and you flag planted Rodrigo Blankenship as your week 15 kind of key GPP kicker. Are you still holding by that take?
I am. Yeah, I know it was controversial. The comments really went wild with that, but I do. I think he's just in a great spot, and he's just got the vision for those kicks. I like him a lot.
Leone, you are competing for $2.5 million this weekend in the Draftkings Fantasy Football World Championship. Is it true that you are thinking about boycotting the contest if they do not add kickers to the player pool?
I have considered it. I think it's a position that sometimes leads the NFL in scoring. Who are the NFL scoring leaders, Denny? Quite often kickers. Am I correct?
That's correct, yes.
So to leave out the highest scoring players in the NFL, it seems like a major oversight.
And to that point, what are we doing with this team kicker concept? I mean, why don't we just use team quarterback or team running back? It's a little ridiculous and a little insulting, frankly.
Denny, how do you handle all of these kind of reductive things that kind of diminish the value of the kickers as both humans and football players?
Exactly. So the team kicker thing is like Pat said. I mean, it's dehumanizing almost, and it's saying, all kickers are the same. We have to even engage in that conversation. Obviously, they're not. And so it's hurtful. It's ignorant, and I resent it very much. And also, kickers not being in DFS. Is an atrocity. I mean, I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I mean, it really is one of the worst things to ever happen.
I hate to interrupt this, guys, but I love this community that we built here at Chasing Kicker, and to just see questions about non-kickers and comments about that. It's like, that's not what we're doing here. There are a million other shows where you can talk about running backs, millions of them. We talk about kickers here. If you have questions about kickers, you can put them in the chat, but get this Antonio Gibson stuff out until he starts actually playing a real position. We don't care.
Let's be honest. These are Ben Gretch bots in here to distract us from the issues at hand.
Yeah. There's only one position in all of football that I can sign off on a robust strategy when drafting, and it is kickers. I mean, you can never have too many kickers, Denny.
Exactly, and you can also correlate, kickers. If you're playing Matt Gay this week, you can correlate stack with Perryman, Crowder. I mean, it's your choice. Honestly, it's up in the air. Frank Gore, Sam Darnold. It just you have your choice there, and so that's something that people kind of forget about kickers is that they are conducive to correlation stacks.
How are the can you bring it back with a kicker? Does that work?
Yeah, it can work in some circumstances. Teams that kick a lot of field goals, like the Falcons, whatever. No matter the game script, yeah, I mean you can bring it back with coup all day on it.
Pat, I wanted to throw this to you. You, of course, do the ETR rankings at Dynasty. Hang on, where's my question here? Michael here says, is Sand Sloman worth a stash for 2021 in Dynasty? Debut with the Rams, not so good for the 7th rounder. I know you said there was some big movement on him in your latest Dynasty update.
Well, one thing to keep in mind, and I do this with my Dynasty rankings, is contract situation. So with that rookie contract, should be nice and stable. I think that's something to keep in mind. Don't have to worry about any sort of cut candidate type of issues with him.
Awesome. And I want to throw this one over to Mike, one of the preeminent data scientists in the field. Are K kick air yards a predictive metric or just white noise?
It's white noise. I mean, sometimes with air yards, we call them prayer yards. And, you're throwing Stephen Gostkowski out there at the end of the half to try and make a 65-yarder. That's garbage. That's just white noise. Those are desperation kicks, and we don't really want those to influence how we're projecting them moving forward.
Yeah,
I never won a kicker matchup based on the air yards. That's all I know about kicker air yards.
Do we have any thoughts on kind of the correlative properties of rhyming? Eric wants to know, should I be starting Tucker or Butker? And he did draft them slowly for their rhyming correlation. Pat, do you have a thought on this one?
Well, that doesn't rhyme very well. Tucker and Butker, right? So I think, yes, obviously, we do want to chase the rhyming. That's been shown to be pretty predictive, but you need a better rhyme than that.
Yeah, do you have any examples?
It's been tough, and that it was always tough with Vinatieri, especially, when he was doing so well, you couldn't correlate him. That was one of the tough parts about drafting him in the first place. But
well, there was the kicker for the Cardinals that one year, Len Ateri. I thought that was a nice match with Vinatieri.
Right, and we did have Tyler Bass. There was that UDFA who almost made the Jets named Brian Ass, and that would have been a pretty good rhyming correlation, but he unfortunately didn't make the team.
Yeah, earlier this season, I was rolling out Tyler Bass and Aldrich Rosas things, and boy, the rhyming correlations did not hit there either. So you do have to be really careful and make sure you're lining these up. Any other words here you guys have about the current kicker landscape? I mean, I do really feel like we could go for a full 4 hours like we normally do.
Yeah, I mean, we've got pun opportunities. We might not have rhymes, but we have a lot of pun opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
It is true. Gostowski and Ganikowski. There's that one. The Gano Rodrigo correlation is your top rhyming stack, I do think. Where are the best kicker rankings? Time for Denny to plug the Patreon. Let's go, buddy.
Yes, the Living the Stream Patreon page has all the kicker stuff you could ever want. I also have the Roto World column. And here's the thing. Here's something that people don't know, and I'm not very public about it. But I do rankings every week. No one knows this, but I actually do real life rankings on Roto World. And if you would like to see those, you can sign up for those. And those have my kicker rankings. So there you go.
Do you guys, Mike and Pat, do you feel like Denny feels like a little ashamed about having this? I mean, this show is fucking dedicated to kickers. I mean, you don't need to be ashamed about this, Denny. It's 2020.
Yeah. Be loud, be proud. People need their kicker advice, Denny. And I'm not
ashamed. Look.
Well, I got the vibe that maybe Denny was ashamed of ranking the other positions.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what it was.
I've been reduced to ranking running backs, guys.
Oh, God.
This is, I mean, one of the things, Denny, I just don't know how you didn't negotiate with Roto World exclusively writing about kickers. I mean, what do they say? Denny, you're a writer. What is the one piece of advice? They say, write what you know. You know kickers inside and out.
That's right. Yeah, it's a failure on my agent's part. It's a failure on my part personally. I will take responsibility for that. But thank you for bringing, kickers to the forefront here. I'm tired of logging into your show at 2 a.m., 2:30 in the morning to watch this. I have kids. I have to get up early, so thank you.
I've been hearing it. I saw it. I mean, what did JJ have that tweet the other night where he's like, kicker chasing is disastrous for East Coast dads? And I'm like, we get it, JJ. We get it.
Yeah, a little too much from my co-host. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Well, Denny, we really appreciate you coming on. We know you're busy. You're making the rounds on all the kicker shows each week, and but we do really appreciate you swinging by.
Yeah, guys, thank you.
Well, for everyone else, thank you guys for tuning in to this week's edition of Kicker Chasing.
Kicker Chasing. It's the show where we chase the best kickers. The kickers that help you win championships. The biggest legs. The breaking news. It's everything you've come to love and know. The time is now for Kicker Chasing. Let's get some fucking kickers.
Oh, yeah! Pete was mouthing along to that as he had done the voice work like an hour earlier. And then as it's playing, he's like, get some fucking kickers.
We need a second episode that is just the camera of Ben watching the first 10 minutes of the show.
We really do.
I know. I think people were already tagging him on Twitter that he was, Josh tagged him. Ben Gretch taking body blows in this while he's doing actual work for the people. Low blow by Kicker Chasing.
That's amazing.
Oh, man. Yeah. Let us know on iTunes in the YouTube comments if you'd like to see more Kicker Chasing.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my goodness. Well, so yes. No. What were you going to say, Mike?
Like, what were the odds, though, that Zane Gonzalez would be the kicker that goes out first?
One of the kickers that went out. I mean, part of that is not a bit. Our team with Crack Rock lost Suck Up this week, and we have a backup kicker, so it's not a big deal. But it could have been disastrous.
Yeah. I do think that argument like holds way more water in a non-global pandemic year. But like this year of all years, you needed that second kicker.
Yeah,
I was literally I messaged Leone too about it, and I was like, I would have been sick to my stomach if we have this team that's top 10 in the main event right now and taking a 0 at kicker, just unbelievably to have who on our bench like Josh Adams, Ty Johnson, like for what?
That team's loaded too. So I guess if I was defending Ben a little bit, it would have been maybe he would have accepted that on like an absolutely loaded team, just taking the safety of a second kicker. You guys should bring that team up. You guys should be damn proud of that team. I'm like pumped for you guys.
It's live. It's definitely live.
I do think there's something to that idea of like, if you're kind of limping in, then maybe it does make sense just to roll with one kicker because you need something to break your way in a big way. But if you have a really strong team, you don't want to not win the main event because you took a 0 at kicker. That's just brutal.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the team that we have with Crack Rock. We were DMing with him last night. Definitely excited about it. If I go to the leaderboard here for the championship, we were in 5th until Monday Night Football. We had a few teams pass us. Oh, it looks like we're down in 11th now. But still, we're pretty mushed up here as far as total points through, we're at 348, 360 here. There is one team who's kind of pulled ahead here at 379, but rolling into this weekend, we got to see what's the deal with some of these questionable guys on the Chargers, but Allen, Eckler, Henry, Diggs, Claypool, Hawkinson, and we're debating right now, and Leone, will be interesting to get your thoughts. It's kind of an interesting situation. We do now have DJ Moore, who is activated. We have Benny Snell potentially if James Conner doesn't go. Hunter Henry was the guy we played last week and the guy we would play if those guys don't open up, but they play on Thursday night. So the question is, do you lock in the Hunter Henry points on Thursday or do you roll the dice on DJ Moore or one of these other options?
I think you guys roll the dice on DJ Moore. You've got Pittman in a really good spot. If you had to play him, like you guys really want to chase the ceiling, and Moore's ceiling so huge. And just looking at your team really coming together at the right time, Hawkinson, what was it, season high in snaps or something like that, and most targets he's seen all season. So that's huge too. And it's nice. I mean, just a coincidence, but it's correlated on the Henry stuff. Just kind of hope that game shoots out a little bit for you guys.
Pat, are you leaning that way too with DJ Moore?
I am. Yeah. I was really psyched to see that Moore was looking like he was going to play Saturday and off the COVID list. So I want to get more in there for sure. Mike, what's going on with Claypool? That's the one that's maybe not hitting at the right time, where we're starting to see his role reduced, and I don't really understand why they would do that. One thing that jumped out to me when I was looking at the routes run this past week, Deontay Johnson gets benched, and it's like, all right, I'm going to see a bunch more routes for Claypool this week. No, you see them all to James Washington. So even with Deontay Johnson getting benched, his role was still not nearly where we want it to be. It was like 58% of the routes or something.
Yeah, I just did their projections a couple hours ago, and it seems like they want to get James Washington on the field more, which I kind of get, because with Juju and Deontay, they just really lack some explosiveness, but you would think that would mean they would want Claypool and Washington on the field at times. I don't know. I wouldn't look too much into it. Claypool is such a stud. He's at least out there. He's just not out there as much as you want. And I don't really have anything like prescient to say about it.
And I don't know, maybe I get too biased with these young dudes that have already broken out and, maybe wishing that their role was bigger. But if we are working under that thesis of like, we are chasing ceiling, trying to win $500,000. And again, the prize drop off is so massive that you have to be playing for first place. And this, like, Chase Claypool to me is that ceiling play that gives you access to first place.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I want to start Chase Claypool, but I just feel like when we look at the team, it's like, man, everything starts to feel like we got Eckler coming back, Hawkinson we were talking about, and the one piece where I'm like, man, I wish I could get Chase Claypool from week 7 or whatever. He was just totally popping off. Week 7 was actually, I think, his worst week of the season. Week 5 is when he absolutely smashed. So, just not quite peaking right now over the last couple of weeks, but yeah, his ceiling is still so big. I just want to see him out on the field more. He is getting targeted at a pretty high rate when he is out on the field, which has been the case all season.
Leone, I'm curious about this thought too, because obviously we have the 4 Chargers and then we have the 2 Bills. And Justin saying, is the Henry, Eckler, Allen too much of a stack that it cuts the ceiling off? Like, assuming like the matchups were agnostic or whatever, or a push, would you be looking to stack that much up or kind of picking your spots?
Well, I mean, you have to play Eckler and Henry, or Eckler and Allen, no matter what. So that part's kind of moot. It's just the Hunter Henry aspect of it. And when you showed me your team, I was like, oh, that's kind of curious as far as your quarterback decision too. Do you play Herbert with the triple stack, to get even more correlation in your lineup, even though Allen's a better play? And as I thought through it, I think, well, no, you just take the pure ceiling of Allen. And I think, you're in a situation where your team is so good. I mean, your team's really good that if you got two strong games from 2 of your Chargers and like an okay floor game from the third, you're fine. And sometimes talk about this in DFS when you're in smaller field tournaments where it's better to correlate more, because if the offense goes off, that third guy, maybe he doesn't have the ceiling, you lose a little bit of ceiling, but he's going to have at least a decent game, a good game, because the whole offense rolls is going to have a good game. And I think even though you guys are chasing ceiling, because you have so much ceiling with the rest of your roster, it's, it doesn't really kill you to say, I'm going to take 3 Chargers. We're going to lock in whichever 2 do really well, especially in like a high total game against Vegas. And then if the third just has a mediocre game, we're fine with it.
Yeah, I think that's especially true when one of the 3 pieces is a tight end here in this format. If you get 6 receptions or something, that alone matters in FFPC.
Yeah, we were already looking, I think this week we feel pretty comfortable rolling out Josh Allen. Week 16 gets a little bit more interesting because your Bills are at the New England Patriots, who I am told like to shut down these top options here. Obviously, we're never benching Diggs, but the Chargers play Denver, so we could theoretically attack Denver in back-to-back weeks here. Like, what is your gut? Obviously, we have time to make this decision. We'll have more information on where we stand, but Josh Allen at the Patriots versus the Chargers versus the Raiders in no weather, no issue game.
Yeah, my lean right now is, to still go with Allen's ceiling. I think he's got more rushing upside, and with the single stack, that's fine. Just the way the Bills have been play calling this year, they're not hiding Allen from anything. We saw this with the Steelers game. He struggles for a half. They come out the second half. They're still just calling all pass plays all the time. And sometimes this happened with the Patriots when they were really good. Sometimes the tougher the matchup, the more pass heavy they went. And I think the Bills are almost doing that to an extent, which makes me feel better about Allen, even though it's not the best of spots.
I'm having a coughing fit. Just talk, Pat.
Yeah, I think one thing. So wait, you would go Allen in week 16 because that Denver matchup is so appealing for Herbert in week 16.
Yeah, I want to pull up what our DVP has this at. But it's close. Like it's a tough decision. I just think Allen has like the nuclear ceiling, but you've got the Herbert stack, a little bit deeper. So I don't know. It's really tough. It's a week out, so I don't, have like any projection. I'm trying to find. Okay. So our DVP, which isn't like perfect, but it's something, has Denver inflating. They actually have Denver as like not the best matchup against quarterbacks, which is surprising. But that has New England is pretty bad. So I don't know. I probably just play it on the team total. Honestly,
yeah.
The team total has. I know people say like playing Vegas is too easy, playing the team total, but you've got two quarterbacks that really command a really high market share of their team's touchdowns, whether it's them running or them throwing. That the team with a higher team total, you kind of want to just cannibalize the touchdown upside. One
thing that stood out to me and kept surprising me, and I'm sure this is baked into team total, like you just said, but Denver seems to pop up in Thorman's pace up games a lot. I always just like the old Denver teams, I feel like would play a little bit slower in previous years, but this team seems to like to play pretty fast right now.
Well, they get behind and then they just throw. I'm not a big Drew Lock fan, and I was tilting my face off when he kind of went nuts against Atlanta, but he had a stretch of games where he threw the ball, 40 plus times, X amount of games in a row, just because they got behind. And when they get behind, they're throwing. They're not, super pass heavy relative to expectation, but when they do get in that negative game script, they'll wing it. And that, allows you to keep putting, the pedal to the metal for the opposing offense.
Yeah. And I do think like there could be I doubt we find ourselves in this situation, but like if you had a lead or something, and like you said, maybe you protect that with like the Chargers onslaught, just hoping they hit that team total, like you said, getting as many points as possible, versus like if you're behind and you're needing to make up points, we are going to need that individual ceiling game from Josh Allen and the individual ceiling games from the Chargers pieces that we're just trying to nail perfectly.
And the FFPC it's not 6 points per passing touchdown, right? But it's 1 point per 20 yards passing, which is a little more favorable towards pass. Do I have that right?
Pat and I's historical track record with knowing the FFPC
settings
inside out are not that great.
No, I think that's right. Yeah, I think it's 20 yards per point, 4 yards per touchdown.
Yeah,
or 4 points per touchdown. Yeah,
I don't know if there's much there. My thought was Allen's more likely to compile more yardage and take advantage of that 1 point per 20 yards. But looking at the game logs, he does have that higher ceiling, but it's pretty volatile. They're kind of like on average, they're pretty close in terms of yards per game.
Yeah. And Dustin says here, for checking the lineups ahead of us, I think that's definitely something after this week, we'll definitely go in, and Crack Rock was already doing that last night. And we already checked, like no one has the Henry Eckler combo that's ahead of us right now. We have a fairly unique team, based on what we had tabbed through and like what we were talking about last night. And we'll try to get Crack Rock on next week too. Hopefully we'll have a good sweat. Is the Chiefs situation, like most of these teams up here all have Kelsey, and that's going to really be kind of one of the things that flip for us. Like if we can have Hawkinson match or even outproduce Kelsey one of these weeks, like we could be in really, really good shape because it's that Chiefs hammer, the Mahomes, the Kelsey, and the Hills. Those are the guys that can really hunt us down.
That's what's sick about your team is because you hit so much on the Allen stack and Keenan Allen at his price tag. There's not that many teams that probably have Hawkins. Oh, I guess Hawkinson ended up with a decent season because tight end was so bad, but he's peaking at the right time. And Eckler, I mean, I'm assuming a lot of Eckler teams were dead. So yeah, that gives you something unique. How badly are you going to be hedging KC and DFS? Or are you just going to go, I mean,
well, when Pat talked about on your diversification pod, hedging and diversifying isn't something we're really known to do.
Well, I don't know. I haven't talked to you about what chalk you like this week, but one spot you might be different from your DFS portfolio is going to be Derrick Henry. And we have a chance. Would you take – we have a potential for Stafford to miss this week, which would really suck for Hawkinson. Yeah. But it also just makes Derrick Henry's spot like all the better to where they just are going to smash them. Or do you disagree?
I don't think it matters, right?
I don't think it matters. Henry, the only exception is that Cleveland game where they were down 38-7 at half. Anything besides that, I really don't know if it matters for Henry. I mean, there were games against the Chiefs last year. They were down, 2 touchdowns, Henry smashes, in the second half. I think you almost want Stafford and speed the game up and keep it a little bit close so he doesn't rest at all. So I think I'd prefer Stafford in there. I don't think the game script, if they're 11-point favorites instead of 7-point favorites, I don't know how much that's really going to matter. I've got an absurd projection on Henry this week. My efficiency model on Henry.
I'm going to end up not playing him again.
I hate projecting guys with a high yards per carry because it's very volatile and like rush yards is one of the noisiest thing. But my default algorithm wants me to project him for like 5.7 yards per carry in this game.
That seems fair. That seems like a good projection.
All right,
but he's at 5.2 2 years in a row. He's at like 5.2, and it's a plus matchup. So it's like,
if you had to submit your lineup for the Fantasy Football World Championship on DraftKings right now, like or in the next 10 minutes, do you think Derrick Henry would be in your lineup?
I don't think so, if I had to do it. I like building these balanced lineups with a lot of upside. We'll see. I got away from that last week because I thought there was kind of a unique opportunity with Jalen Hurts that let me jam in some studs. But this week, Hurts
there's
a little more
no value this week.
Yeah.
What's the field size for that?
It's 200 people. I don't want to give too much away, but I'm just
you don't have to.
I'm just gonna keep. I'll save it for the ETR Millie show on Saturday. The subs can have it, but
that's fine. So if you guys didn't piece that together, Leone qualified for the Fantasy Football World Championship, 2.5 million up top. Andrew Wiggins, also from ETR, has a seat. So going to be fun. Definitely going to want to watch him and Dink talk about their stuff on Saturday. We'll be on the Tilt Space on Sunday evening, sweating it out. So it's going to be fun. It was, Leone, when I told you, you didn't realize that it was this weekend on Sunday. When you qualified, you were like, wait, it's next weekend?
It's like I kind of knew, but it didn't really hit me that it was so immediate that this thing was going on. So, because I really hadn't chased it all year long. I just kind of liked that structure of that queue where I like the larger qualifier where you don't have to be the best team, where it's basically winner take all. What kind of sucks is there's only 3 late games, but it maybe will prevent me from some bad Galaxy Brain late swaps because there is late swap this year because the finals is virtual.
And that adds a whole other ring. Do you like having that? Generally I think sharp players consider that an edge. You would assume like the field self-selects pretty sharp players. Do you think there still is a late swap edge?
Objectively, I think it's better for me. It just gives me outs if things don't necessarily go right. Subjectively, it's just another thing to think about. Everyone plays the what if game or, I should have just done that. It just gives you another one of those where you just lie to yourself and be like, I really wanted to play this side of the swap and played the other one. But even though we only have 3 late games, they are somewhat appealing because it's, Akers, maybe chalk against the Jets, and then Arizona versus Philly, dome game, KC at New Orleans. So there might be a lot of late swap action, even though there's only 3 games.
And if we, I just started looking at stuff closely today, but it is an interesting dynamic because I think we've had a lot of these slates where the value opens up and you get people funneling to the kind of chalk constructions. I realize this is a season-long thing that's turning into a DFS show, but it is interesting too of if no value opens up and people are forced into more balanced builds. Like Derrick Henry at 10,000, it's very hard to afford and get in other good plays. So do you have a preference on that? Do you like the idea of people getting funneled to a specific type of build that you can leverage, or do you want the flexibility with the pump plays as well?
No, I would love people to get funneled to the same build, because then it's a lot easier to just get off that structure and be different. The last couple of weeks, I've had a really tough time pinning down ownership in these higher stakes, smaller fields. And it's a little bit easier if you can just get off a specific structure and you don't have to necessarily worry about, the individual plays. Like last week, Wiggins made a team in the queue that I might have thought was bad ahead of time, because he had the 3 guys I thought would be mega chalky, and Derrick Henry, Travis Kelce, and Devontae Adams. But all those guys ended up 5 to 10% lower owned than I expected them to be, which also reduced the likelihood that they would all be played together. So he kind of got the 3 best plays on the slate together, and almost nobody else did that. So he ended up unique with the very best plays. So
wow. That's awesome.
It'll be interesting.
Well, it looks like there might be some value opening up with potentially if Mostert misses, right?
The reports I saw today, he thinks he's good. What were you?
I'm sorry. I really thought I love Pat's cognitive dissonance that he went to maybe if Mostert's out and didn't even say anything about.
I knew I was kind of stringing you along there that I might say Fournette is the value, but I would never say that Fournette's the value. Fournette's never value, Mike.
It's still, I said that it's on the Swolecast today, and I totally believe that it would happen, but it is absolutely wild that Arians would rather make him a healthy scratch and play LaShawn McCoy, and then if Rojo's out, give Leonard Fournette 20 touches. That just does not make sense to me, especially if they're using Fournette as the pass catching back.
Well, I think that's the thing is McCoy's now the pass catching back. Yeah. So it's almost like Fournette might take Rojo's role and then McCoy stays the same.
That's what would happen. I think they're just trying to figure out how to use this terrible football player that they found. They're like, well, he's really sucking ass at the thing that he's supposed to be good at. Let's try him as a pass catcher. And then it's like, oof, that did not go well. So now he's just a pure backup.
Rojo was on my qualifying team. So
that's beautiful. It's a beautiful
on
thing.
Brand.
Did you see, Leone, the more I thought about
not on your brand, you haven't been very.
Yeah, well, it's on brand for my friends.
What was his ownership, Mike, in your Q team?
It was high. It was my 3rd highest owned player. It was 27%.
Did you? Because when I was doing my review on my spy team, I regret. I think Rojo was 21% in the spy on mine, and I thought it was a bad play because when I anchored him into my lineup, I thought I was getting him at 5 to 8%, and then I think I made a mistake not moving off of it.
I think the Fournette news really kind of changed the play.
100%, and it didn't even change it for me, but it changed it for other people, and that should have changed it for me.
Right. That's how I felt about it because I was obviously going to be playing a lot of them. I did play a lot of them, but then everyone else played a lot of them.
I was a little bit in between. I did think Fournette being out helped the play, with goal line carries and stuff.
I agree.
I didn't see him getting vultured, whereas if Fournette had vultured him, it wouldn't have been that shocking. So I thought it helped the play, but I didn't anticipate that late news moving that many people onto Rojo. So it was probably a bad play in a vacuum at 27%. I actually had this team constructed before the news. And I wasn't getting off it. I was pretty contrarian elsewhere. Jonathan Taylor came through for me huge. So it was nice to finally get that breakout game.
Yeah. His vision got a lot better all of a sudden. It's nice.
I saw Ben was very upset with people who think he got better. But I think plays like Taylor are interesting, especially where DFS is right now. People are a lot sharper on kind of projections with like base roles. So guys whose roles might be different than we're projecting. I mean, Miles Sanders was a guy too, where it's like, oh, we can't project him for full volume, but then he plays 80% of snaps. You don't want to get caught doing that too much, or you'll end up making bad plays. But with Taylor, he played well, so Wilkins barely played.
So I did that with CEH. I had CEH. I played a fair amount of Taylor, a fair amount of CEH. CEH ended up being in one of my better lineups where I could have used Taylor in that one. But CEH's snaps went way up too. And that was like, you're kind of betting on him to get a really nice workload in a good offense. That happened, but he's just, I think the David Montgomery type narrative is going to start on CEH, where it's just like, no matter what the workload is, we can't play him.
Which is crazy because, David Montgomery runs for an 80-yard touchdown. It's like, oh, is he not terrible now because he ran for an 8, in 2 straight good weeks? So it's really the running backs matter, don't matter thing is really kind of messes with your mind a little bit, because you try not to buy into it too much. And then you see things like Montgomery, but then you also see things like Madison without Dalvin Cook, and he's terrible, whereas Dalvin Cook crushes. So it's very difficult to get a pulse on.
What one thing I'm curious your thoughts on, and I was just talking with Brian about this on Lulz too, and about being in, I think it's maybe applicable now that we're talking about DFS on a season-long show here, but like I see the pros and cons to being like deeply embedded into playing season long, maybe big volume in season long, and then how you apply that to DFS. The benefits being lots of good understanding of these depth charts of these players, maybe even from a dynasty perspective, their player profiles. The downsides maybe being like getting trapped into like, I have to play the best plays, or like not being able to anticipate leverage or ceiling outcomes. If we do have some people who maybe aren't as deep into the DFS weeds, but are playing a lot of season long, what kind of advice would you give them of how to leverage their skill sets and the things that they might need to pay attention to that they're not used to?
Yeah. What's nice about NFL DFS is there's enough variance, unlike NBA DFS, where you don't have to have this insane sort of, I'm trying to think of the right word, but for NBA DFS, you have to be just so tuned in, and you have to understand the exact projection, and being off by a couple points on projection is huge in NBA DFS. It's not so much like that with NFL DFS, which I think opens the door to people who understand season long, they understand player profiles. So a guy like Jonathan Taylor, if he's a future stud, if there's a chance this muddled backfield, he emerges at some point over the course of the season, you understand you can take a shot at him in a DFS tournament because you sort of understand that profile and realize that the market's overreacting to a base workload projection that has some variance to it. So I think that's an advantage Ben Gretch talks about in Dynasty taking players who he knows are going to have a breakout year at some point the next 3 or 4 seasons. He doesn't know when it's going to be, but he knows that it's coming, right? So he'll take a guy that maybe disappoints a little bit, but is still pretty good because he's really confident in the player, and just taking a chance that breakout season's coming. Maybe he's a little early, maybe he's not. I think you can smush that down to DFS and be like, I know this guy's going to have a huge game the next 4 weeks. I don't know when it's going to be. It might not project great for this specific week, but it's happening, and I want to be on it before the field's on it. So I think that's where it's helpful. Where it's hurtful is, just at times you just got to find that equilibrium to, okay, but like the workload for this specific week does matter. Is this happening yet? Because sometimes I see things with young players. Like I go back and forth with Davis Maddock all the time where, Michael Pittman has a 20%.
I knew this example was coming.
Because the Pittman example is the best one because it's, it's this offense where the targets are spread out and it's highly variant. And it's like, you can't. And so then he's just assuming that, oh, this happened for this young player, so it's just going to carry forward. And like, that's not really how it works either, though, because sometimes it gets pulled back. And, we've seen it the last 2 weeks. T.Y. Hilton goes nuts. So you have to find that middle ground of, understanding the vision of your season-long guys and where they could go and how you could be early on DFS, but also you don't want to kind of double count things just because you really like a player long-term.
And Pat, I know you played DFS last year, but you've definitely ramped up your play and how much you focus on it this year. What have been kind of the things that you've learned, diving in more headfirst than you had previously?
Yeah, to me, the whole thing is just the fun of the lineup construction. And so getting, all the stuff that Mike talks about with the correlation and trying to find those mini correlations and thinking through, trying to make the, smart lineups and not just sort of kind of willy-nilly pick guys you like, I think is really important. And that's one way to like prevent yourself from just like, Mike and I talked on Establish the Edge about like trying not to just hammer Cortland Sutton in the 4 or 5 turn like I did endlessly, like trying to find ways to help yourself break those 45, 55 decisions sometimes towards the 45 so that you don't end up with a portfolio that's totally whacked from what you think is a 45, 55 decision. And I think in DFS, like being able to say this lineup doesn't fit this thing that I like. Like I have a mini correlation I really like, but it doesn't fit this lineup because of the other stuff that I want to do here. Therefore, I'm not going to incorporate it. I'm not going to force it. And I'm going to find something else that I like. I think that's been something that's really helped.
I do just want to do a quick aside and talk about the power of roster construction, because Pat and I had our best year we've ever had playing high stakes. We're going to end up being profitable. We have a team that's live to win $500,000. And we concentrated our rookie wide receivers on Jalen Reagor and Laviska Shenault. We are 0 RB guys who didn't have a single share of James Robinson. And we are still having our best year ever. And because partly we've learned from the mistakes and the draft structure that we did set us up for success, and even missing out on having Cortland Sutton on all of our teams. I just think that's an interesting thing of how we really survived what otherwise could have been catastrophic mistakes.
We also were quick to the waiver wire with those same trends where we capitalized on, we did get some Myles Gaskin. We did get some T. Higgins, Chase Claypool off the waivers.
Justin Herbert.
Yeah. So we were right on the macro trends, and then our execution on a micro level wasn't all that great. We had a lot of misses, and I do think that like we just put too many eggs in certain players' baskets when we had the macro trend dead on.
Yeah.
So I've got season-long questions for you guys then. And Chris G mentions in the chat, he says, my learning experience this year, do better fab management and do more main events, less FBG. And, I'm sort of on that. I'm not doing as many leagues as you guys. So that's the one thing I think I'm going to try and focus on next year is I tried to do, because I love drafting, I tried to do too many leagues, and my strength is not in fab management. Sometimes I outsource it to Davis. I'm trying to do more of my own fab next year. So it's
that's a really subtle way to make a point there, Leone.
Like, what's your exposure to Michael Pittman and FFPC?
No, me and Davis have a good working relationship. So I didn't mean it as a knock on Davis. I just meant I just want to be a little bit more these are my teams. I want to be a little bit more in the weeds. And I felt a little bit spread out, needing that help there. So I think focusing on less teams that are more important for me is important. But for you guys, you're obviously doing a lot of teams. You're just kind of like, I don't know, anything. We talk a lot about contest selection and DFS, just anything you guys think you might be doing differently for your season long bankroll next year.
I agree with Chris. I want to do more main events. And we finished first in points, barely did not finish first in record in the first main event that we drafted. And then the Crack Rock team is our best team, and that's also a main event team. So of our 18 portfolio, the 2 best teams were main event teams. So it's not, I just think that there's not like, if you're on the fence of do I play the main event or football guys, to me, there's no real difference between like the competition level of them. It's just the stakes. So I like the payout in the main event, and I think we'll probably just do more main events next year, right?
That's where I'm leaning and looking at the payout structures and just the ability to be rewarded more financially for your regular season performance in the main event, I think makes sense. And obviously there's a big price disparity there, right? Like you can play 5 football guys for basically the price of one main event. So I understand that. But if you were, say, deciding between 5 football guys and one main event, I would still lean towards the one main event in just one, how that can reward you for your regular season work effort, because it can be tough when the football guys, like we grinded these teams with Davis and Sean and the quad guys. And like, it's tough not to get rewarded for good managing.
So with having such a good year, do you guys have any inkling of maybe playing some of these high stakes non-overall leagues? You know, FFPC's got the 5K big payback, the 10K high society. I mean, you know, with you guys splitting teams with people too, I know those are like really high stakes, but like, do those have appeal to you where it's just all league prizes and it might be kind of a subset of people playing those that you guys could, I don't know if take advantage of this too strongly, but they probably don't play the way you guys play.
Yeah, I think that would be something interesting to consider, and that would definitely be fun. And then that's like putting us in the spot of saying, would you rather play 5 football guys or one main event? Would you rather play, 3 main events or one big payback kind of thing there too? And, I don't want to, this was a good comment by Cobra here. I do 5 football guys drafts. I enjoy the fun of drafting. I don't want to diminish that at all. Pat and I, like, doing our live drafts is some of the most fun I've had. It's the most fun I have streaming. Like, I absolutely love it. I'm trying to balance the managing and then also kind of the realistic ROI on the time invested in these. And Mike, you mentioned like having someone help you out on waivers. Like, that's a huge element. So I don't know, Pat, where you are, like, because I want to do as many drafts. I want to do more drafts, but I don't want to manage, and I want to be rewarded if we are investing that time managing.
Yeah, I think being able to do at least a few drafts is helpful. I think, though, like, what I would say in that case, I'd rather try to do like at least one main event and then do like maybe 1 or 2 football guys on top of that if I could afford that, as opposed to doing just all 5 football guys. 'Cause I do think there's something to the idea of like having this one team or 1 or 2 teams, especially if you're kind of newer to the format, where you're putting a lot of your mental energy and trying to understand after the fact, like what happened, what decisions could I have made differently. Like, you're really studying what went on. I think that's how you're going to end up being better down the line. And money kind of focuses your attention. It's like having that high stakes team is going to often like just be an incentive for you to really study the format and get better at it.
More best ball. So kind of, I feel like you kind of take some of those FBGs and play some more best ball and more higher stakes and kind of weed those out a little bit, right? I mean, I need to play more best ball next year, because my problem with best ball is I get in these phases where I like pump out 10 drafts and then like I feel like I need to reset, like redo my rankings. Maybe some news happens, and sometimes I don't circle back, and I ended up not playing as much as I kind of had thought I played in retrospect.
And another thing, Pat, that was tough is like, I legitimately love co-managing and quad managing and try managing. It's so fun to be able to communally root for something together as opposed to just being on an island. Like, even one of my home league teams that I've been in forever, like, no one cares about it. I don't talk about it. I don't like whatever. It just happened. So to be able to share that is awesome. That said, it is an added level of work. You and me have done this forever. We get on the same page quickly, but like, we have to go and we have to email Sean and Ben. We have to email Blair and Hassan. And I'm not saying, I don't want to say it's a chore, but it is time. And that time compounds over 7 or 8 different quad co-managed teams.
Yeah. Cause if you need to like, hey, I think we should swap out this running back, then you got to email everyone. It's also like sometimes you'll see something last minute and it's like, oh, there might not be enough time to actually get this change through. It can sometimes be a logistical thing, not even just a time management thing, which there's that element too. Yeah, it's a little tough. I think to Mike's point about best ball, one of the things that I'm thinking about is like, I want to do more best ball next year too, but I actually want to do like less of the big tournaments in best ball. And I want more exposure to like the FFPC main event type of tournament, because having this team with Crack Rock right now is really, really fun. Having like a team that advanced, to the semifinals of these best ball tournaments, I don't feel the same rush. So I'd rather just like win my best ball. The best balls to me are the drafting. You do the drafts, you get the drafts done, and then hopefully you win money at the end of the year. But the kind of the big winner takes all tournament style, I think holds less appeal to me than I thought it might.
Well, you're kind of nurturing these season-long teams all year long. You're more invested in it. Whether it's true or not, it feels like slightly more controllable at the end, at least, than the best balls, where it's kind of like, did my team stay healthy or not? I mean, that's obviously huge in season-long redraft too, but in best ball especially, I don't know. The big tournaments are tough, and I think you have such an advantage in best ball, just making a lot of teams that are just structurally better than other teams. But it's hard to sort of like play for that overall finals. I don't know. It's tough. I think I'm with Pat, where I'd like to kind of not necessarily grind out a smaller ROI, but I'll do a mixture for sure.
Yeah. I really didn't do any like 12 team only, and I want to do that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The thing like I was just thinking about, like, and I know we're in, Leone for like the Dynasty best balls, and you have like an open waiver or trade window. I'd almost like some compromises with that, with season long. Like, what if you had, quarterly waivers? So we've been doing the FFWS, like once every 4 weeks you do waivers, like anything to offset the burden, but still give you some more emotional investment in the team as it goes along. I would be interested in stuff like that.
I thought one of the sites did a kind of a hybrid, but I know for baseball, like the NFBC baseball, I was in one league that did waivers like twice. It was like once at the beginning of the season and once at the middle of the season. That was it.
Yeah. And speaking of all this stuff too, I know FFPC just announced their playoff contests. I know Pat and I always have a fun time doing that.
Yeah, that's always a lot of fun.
Pat generally projects ownership for that. We do a show with Hassan and Blair. So that's a good one too, that marries that idea of like set it and forget it, do all the research. You're done with it. They're lotto style tickets. You're just hoping to bank. I feel like the time investment versus the payoff is more, I don't know, proportional, I guess I would say.
Dude, I love those types of contests.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. I wish the payout structure was a little flatter, but I understand, you're kind of trying to just hit the home run with the lottery ticket here. But I just love the strategy of it. I like games with good strategy. It's not just picking the best players. I know I was laughing though. We did this show last year. We did one, the three of us.
Oh yeah, we did with Dink. Yeah.
And
how did that go? I don't remember.
We got we had to run like 1 percentile on what we.
Oh God, I remember.
We
did have like good takes. I feel like we had good takes.
We said, so I was going in like super contrarian, and you guys kind of talked to me off it, which process wise, you guys were 100% right. But it was kind of like we ended up thinking, okay, like eat the chalk with Lamar, eat the chalk with Kittle, eat the chalk with Michael Thomas. Ended up like the 3, and then go contrarian on Derrick Henry, go contrarian on Aaron Jones. And it was just like,
maybe we didn't have good takes.
No,
Henry was good, wasn't he?
Well, we went contrarian by not playing him.
Oh, then that was not good.
I just got a panic attack thinking about that stream, because I'm pretty sure we did that like with the old like OBS Periscope thing, and we're having tech issues too. So this year, maybe we'll get the band back. I couldn't remember, because 2 years ago we did it with Hassan and Blair, and last year we did it with you and Dink. But we'll have multiple shows about the FFPC Playoff Challenge this year.
Have you guys read the detail? Has anything changed? Okay, so it looks like it's the same rules, even though there's 2 more playoff teams, which is kind of another wrinkle that we haven't had in the past, which is really interesting.
That's interesting.
Because not only do you have more teams, so there's kind of like more ways to get different, but also the amount of teams that could play 4 games expands. There's only 2 teams, 1 on each conference, that get the bye instead of 4. So it's definitely different.
Yeah, you might have a very, very strong team that does not have a bye. and that team could end up being the team that wins it for you because they get 4 games out of them. They go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, in general, I mean, it's the same thing with why we like main slates, over short slates. And, Adam talks about it too, like more games and more teams for your opponents to make mistakes, more spots to leverage. So yeah, I think the more, the better for that contest.
Henry, as is usually the case, is updating us on the rules of the contest that we're describing. Yeah, I guess it is different. You've got 12 instead of 10.
But that still speaks to that same thing, like more ways to build.
Right.
Oh, I thought for some reason I thought it was 12 last year too. So I guess I was wrong, which it sounds like Henry is usually right and we're usually wrong. So
yeah,
we'll trust Henry.
yeah, he's usually pretty on top of it.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, I mean, we got week 15, 16, 17, and then wild card weekend. It's gonna come quick. Oh my goodness! What? Go ahead, Leone.
Well, DFS slates wild card weekend are going to be out of control. I mean, you get 2 3-gamers. Probably that'll be the main prizes.
Right.
I wish it was like 1 6-gamer, but I bet they won't. I hope they make the prizes big for the 6-gamer, but what are they? Have you seen the schedule? Are we going to get 3 spaced out games on Saturday and 3 spaced out Sunday? I mean, I imagine you would, right? Like 12, 4, and 8.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That would be so sweet.
It's also, for me, it is a combination of NBA will be rolling and launch. So I have that kind of work off my back. And then also projections go from 32 teams to 12 teams. So like I'm going wild that week, guys. I mean, I'm free.
Just like
I think we're drinking on that show, Leone.
Look at that. 440, 815 both days.
Wow.
It's a late swap bonanza.
Hands up, Leone. Hands up.
Yeah, I know. Oh boy.
So you think this will end up being 2 3-game slates? Do you think there will be a 6-game slate?
They better have a 6-game slate.
I hope so, but the way stuff's trended, they kind of like to churn money as much as possible.
I know,
but I mean,
6-game.
There's definitely going to be 2 3-gamers. It's just a matter of, and there will definitely be a 6-gamer. Just will they make the 6-gamer prizes, worth chasing?
Oh, wow, I hadn't even looked at this. But Eric mentions would be pretty exciting if your Crack Rock team came to the last game next week. Bills Pats is the Monday night.
Oh my God.
Dude. All right, I'm saying it right now. If we got a sweat, we will have a live sweat show on Ship Chasing for Bills Patriots.
Well, there's a huge incentive to start Josh Allen.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's already locked into the lineup. As Leone knows, when we build our tilt space lineups, and I'm always like, can't we just put the 4 p.m. guys in here? Like, I'm always pushing for the content sweat equity.
You then just like import that same lineup and privately and just put in the 1 o'clock guy.
My wife absolutely hates Sundays because she's basically watching my son all day while I do football stuff. And like kind of her one reprieve is they sit down to watch the Bills game. And she's gone through a stretch here, 4 straight Sundays without a Bills game during the day.
Oh God.
Wow. Does your wife still hate me? Does she still think of me as the troublemaker?
She does think of you as the troublemaker, but she doesn't hate you. I forgot, what did she say? If I tell her I'm doing a stream with you, there's always like a little like, don't drink too much.
I'm like, it's like, high school all over again. It's like the friends that are bad influence. It's like, oh, you're going out with Peter, huh? Please get home by 10. Real quick, shout out to Sam here. Obviously doing great work for ETR. He does the charts for Stat Chasing, just launched his new site, fantasyevaluator.com. I mean, the correlation matrix looks super cool. I'm excited to mess
I was
around.
poking around on it earlier. It's awesome. Yeah, it's really easy to use, really fun to use. Looks really great.
Yeah, definitely check his stuff out. Sam, just doing awesome work. Fantasyevaluator.com. Thank you, Sam, for all you've done for Stat Chasing and in ETR this year. Just awesome stuff.
Yeah, super great guy too. You know, just really nice guy that just he'll try to improve his skill sets, and he has, as you can see with the stuff that he's doing. I like the correlation tool quite a bit. I think that is, you know, sometimes Pete and I and Holka and I are talking through, you know, should we single stack or double stack? And one of the things we started looking at a little bit more lately is the correlation of receivers together, which kind of based on how the offense is structured, it doesn't necessarily follow the same pattern for all teams. Some teams, it's like Atlanta, you know, when they hit, everyone kind of hits because Ryan just completed a ton of passes and thrown for 400 yards. But there's other teams where it's kind of like, oh, when Keenan Allen hits, it's like all Keenan Allen 8-10 yard catches down the field. But when Mike Williams hits, he kind of takes the whole possession on a long play, and those guys aren't as correlated.
Yeah, it's similar with Hopkins and Kirk, where Kirk's been hitting with Kyler in his huge games, but Hopkins isn't actually all that correlated with Kyler because, you know, he just kind of gets his usually no matter what. Yeah.
Leone, you think are you liking these rushing QBs this week? I mean, we get Hurts, we got Taysom, we got Lamar. Pretty good week for the rushers.
I'm pretty pissed that Lamar went off last week.
Yeah.
I've been playing him all year long. I'm pissed on two fronts. One, I've been playing him all year long and, you know, could have used that on a main slate earlier. But two, now he's going to be mega popular and it's a difficult decision. I do like these guys too that we know historically have high ceilings, but we haven't seen it recently because people are kind of like, oh, these guys don't have a ceiling anymore. And it's like, do they not really have a ceiling anymore because of half a season of not hitting one? But, you know, it'll be, I wonder if Mark Andrews will be chalk and if I can get unstuck on him with everybody out there. Maybe I'll play Des Bryant in a live final.
Oh God.
Wow. No, please.
No, not really. I won't.
I would never question your judgment, but I would have to step in. That's right. Yeah. I was looking at that with Mark Andrews because it's, I mean, Kelsey's so expensive at 8,000. I think Akins and Komet are probably going to be the punts. And then there's like Andrews and Hawkinson in the mid range that look intriguing.
Yeah. Andrews is 55 or something. He's not even that expensive. So.
And he probably would have been way more popular if he had connected on that touchdown that Lamar overthrew him on.
And we saw when Andrews was out and the other guys had COVID, Marquise Brown's target shares went, you know, through the roof, and they just don't have that many guys.
Well, the other thing was that Luke Wilson was a healthy scratch for that game, and obviously Nick Boyle's out, so there is no other tight end that's stealing work. There was that stretch where it was like Nick Boyle was running a lot of routes and it was hurting Mark Andrews' upside. That factor is now removed. So I think Mark Andrews, I'm a little hesitant to play Lamar, especially if he is going to be popular, because my whole thing with the Ravens is that I want someone pushing them, because we have seen where they'll just, you know, they'll be done with Jacksonville in like 2.5 quarters. And then does Lamar sit? So that's my main concern there.
I mean, my main concern with the Ravens is Gus Edwards. I mean, he's the fly in basically every ointment. Like J.K. Dobbins, Lamar, Mark Andrews in the red zone. I mean, he is such a vulture.
Yeah, he's good. I mean,
he's good. Yeah, that's the problem. He's actually good. It's not like Mark Ingram where they're like, eventually we'll figure out he's bad, and they did.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty good.
The reason I know he's good is because Hermsmeyer will do a bunch of bus emojis when he scores. And I'm like, all right, I guess it's pretty good.
Hermsmeyer. Yeah. It's funny how he's like all into the Game Pass stuff, just posting his highlight clips every week.
Hey, yeah, I need to get your take on this, Pat. I mean, you're the Mr. Anti-Gasecki. So is it Dermot Smythe or Adam Shaheen week?
Yeah, you know, the target per route run of I don't know. These guys are going to post touchdowns.
On the bit like 4 seconds.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. I literally, my whole thing is that I want to take shots at Pete and Davis when Shaheen and Smythe get in the end zone. I don't actually want to play them on my DFS lineups.
I should say, bailing on the bit, you were the best at keeping it together through kicker chasing. I think all of us were losing it except you.
I thought I had you guys on the when do kickers break out.
That was good. That was
we had A couple. There was another one that was like really subtle, but just the way you kind of said it, it was just like it was even subtler than when the kickers break out. But it was just kind of like you seem so genuinely interested.
Yeah, I actually felt like a little bit like I was like a little like shaky after because there were so many times where I almost fucking broke. I like forced myself not to break.
No, Pat's good, man. I once I got Pat on the going to check out all the good New York City improv, he really became an actor.
I picked it up, yeah.
What was the Swolecast one? When you guys were just trying to be super serious.
Oh, that was in reference because Ricky D had done a tweet where it's like after Davis and I both had winning weeks, and he's like, "I'm worried the Swolecast is going to get super serious, like Jim Carrey, late in the career and not be funny anymore." And so I said we should just do like the first half of the show just as dead serious as possible. And I mean, it was basically impossible for us to do that. Pat lost it during the fan third quarter draft. What's that referencing?
Oh, that's the FFWS draft where we drafted with Sam and Steven.
Oh, what happened at that?
I just got drunk.
That could be literally any of our. I was telling Brian earlier, like I was so proud of my, I drink a lot on Sunday, took Monday and Tuesday off from drinking. And like in my head, I was like, man, I can get lit tonight. Like I took 2 days off from drinking. That's how distorted my brain is with drinking at this point. Speaking of which, I'm going to go get another Coors
I'm
Light.
only having one DDH Simcoe Bomb New England IPA.
Oh,
I had one so far, so I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
I had a little Crown, but not too much.
Nice. I will say, Pete brought up the New York comedy, and while we're filling time, if you have not checked out the podcast called Dead Eyes, highly recommend it. That's a podcast that is one of the New York improv guys. Pete, are you?
Which one did you just
Dead Eyes?
Oh yeah,
Dead Eyes is now I'm blanking on his name. Connor Ratliff. Yeah. It's like, it's one of the most like, it's, if you need like a break from football stuff, but still feels like somewhat relevant to like, I don't know. It just kind of fits in with like the emotionality of an NFL football season.
Did you already give the log line on like the hook? So the hook is Connor Ratliff. He's this comedian, improv guy, actor now. And one of his first auditions was for Band of Brothers. And he was going to acting school out in England. And, that's where they were shooting it. Tom Hanks, of course, producing, directing. So he gets called in for this bit role for Band of Brothers. And he thinks he has it. And, everything from the casting director is all positive. And then he gets this call back from them. And they're like, actually, I think we're going to have to go in a different direction. And he's like, what's the deal? And it was like, well, Tom Hanks watched the tape and he thinks you have dead eyes. And he's like, what the hell? Like, this is his like big break. Like I'm getting to be a Band of Brothers, with Tom Hanks, all this stuff. And so this whole podcast,
Tom Hanks was directing the episode.
And so this whole podcast episode is him trying to find answers and talking to people about like, do I have dead eyes? Like what happened in this interview? And it's he's a really talented, funny dude, and it's a good listen.
What are dead eyes?
That's a big part of the podcast. Like, what even are dead eyes?
Have you seen?
I don't know if that was a common thing or not.
Check out the Week 13 third quarter FFWS. Dead eyes.
Yeah. All right. We should probably wrap this up. We do appreciate Leone hopping on for chasing kickers tonight. His kicker expertise is truly invaluable. Thank you, Leone.
Stephen Gostkowski.
There it is. I'm surprised you're not standing for Tyler Bass, man. I thought you were a homer.
Well, it's difficult because Gretch picked him up over Zane Gonzalez. So
get that off the screen, Pat.
I can't really cheer for, Gretch kind of ruined it for me. I'm trying to cheer for the Bills, but he weaseled out of this Zane Gonzalez solo kicker thing with his picking up Tyler Bass. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Ben said that he wasn't taking the L because Zane Gonzalez's injury had happened early enough that he was able to pick up Tyler Bass? That's
no,
right?
No. He picked up Tyler Bass before Gonzalez got hurt.
Right.
He got bailed out. This is what happened. Kyler hurts his shoulder, and Ben gets cold feet on Zane Gonzalez and picks up Tyler Bass instead. So he gets bailed out.
He only ever had one kicker.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. But we can also say Ben weaseled out of this show. He's been kind of a mainstay on the Wednesday night show and just, happened to on Kicker Apocalypse week, miss out. It is very curious, I would say.
Yeah. We told him we were going to do this. No, we didn't.
So not to extend kicker chasing any longer, but I was just curious how Crack Rock felt on your guys' big team.
Crack Rock is pro handcuff. In general, and pro protecting kind of like your premium assets and definitely in the context of this team. Although I will say, Pat, I was pretty stoked to play matchups with two defenses. I was scoping out defensive matchups with Seattle and Cleveland for the playoff schedule. And he was saying that he thinks maybe going forward, you could get away with one, which obviously makes sense and that there's no risk of injury. But I also like the idea of playing the matchups with those. But in general, Pat, he's pretty pro handcuff.
He is. Yeah. He was pointing out the defensive thing. To me, that comes back to like the same thing I was saying earlier with the kicker injury. It's like, if you are in a spot where your team is super, super strong, then maybe there is some value in having that second defense and playing the matchup, because these things we see, they get decided by like 0.05 and stuff. Like it's really tight, and the payout structure is not smooth. So you want to like grind out every little point you can. But yeah, if you have a team that you're like, well, this is a bit more, I need a few things to break, you probably need that extra roster spot on a player where their fortunes can change drastically, and not on a defense where you're not risking ruin by not.
I should say that normally chasing defenses is on at 4 a.m. Eastern. And so I do feel a little bad undercutting that program right now.
That's true. Yeah. Sam hosts that.
Yeah. Thank you. Sam has lots of, defensive charts that he gets for us on chasing defenses. But yes, we appreciate you guys tuning in. If you guys aren't subscribed to Establish the Edge, Leone and Pat's podcast, definitely check that out. Little birdies tell me they might be going to video soon if they could get their shit together.
That's been on the docket for 6
weeks in the making.
Yeah, they'll figure out how to start a YouTube channel one of these days. On Friday, Kerrane and Gretch will be back for Chasing Signals. They'll walk through fantasy DFS preview for the slate. And then on Sunday, Leone battling for 2.5 million. You guys can check him out on Establish the Million Saturday morning, seeing what he's thinking for the slate. And then the Tilt Space, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, we'll be sweating those lineups and getting Mike Leone good and drunk here as he wins 2.5 million. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you notice, we are going exclusive on YouTube. I'm done with Periscope. I'm done with it. So subscribe, turn on the notifications. We are so close to 1,000 subs. Just get us to 1,000 subs so we can.
By the way, I was looking at the numbers.
Yeah,
like a third of the audience is not subscribed. So we're not just saying this to nobody here. There's a decent amount of people who watch us and don't subscribe. So just subscribe would really help.
Yeah, and apparently Gretch just turned in right now. He said, and they were talking about me and Zane Gonzalez live. I imagine this was a riveting show.
He's so pissed.
I mean, he's the host of Chasing Kickers, dude. I mean, he's kind of ripping.
Yeah, I can't believe we had to do his show without him. So thank you for tuning in to Chasing Kickers. We love you all. We will be back on Friday with Gretch and Kerrane. See you guys next time. If I can figure out where my clip is. Peace.